Island hopping is a strategy developed by the United States to gain military bases and secure the many small islands in the Pacific. The attack was led by General Douglas MacArthur, who was commander of the Allied forces in the Southwest Pacific, and Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, commander-in-chief of the Pacific Fleet. The U.S. troops targeted the islands that were not as strongly defended by the Japanese. They took control of those islands and quickly constructed landing strips and small military bases. Then they proceeded to attack other islands from the bases they had established. Slowly but surely, the U.S. Army moved closer to Japan, taking control of many of the surrounding islands. It was very successful, but it cost many American lives because they were not used to the tactics of the Japanese. One of the tactics used was called a banzai charge, which was a suicidal last-ditch attack that was mounted by Japanese infantry during World War II. Once the Japanese knew that they were defeated, they charged the Allies with whatever they had. Most of the charges ended with a high body count of the Japanese. Kamikaze aircraft were essentially pilot-guided explosive missiles, purpose-built or converted from conventional aircraft. Pilots would attempt to crash their aircraft into enemy ships. Planes were usually loaded with some combination of explosives, bombs, torpedoes, and usually a full fuel tank. Accuracy was much better than a conventional attack, the payload and explosion much larger. A kamikaze could sustain damage which would disable a conventional attacker and still achieve its objective. The goal of damaging or destroying large numbers of Allied ships, mainly aircraft carriers, was considered to be a just reason for sacrificing pilots and aircraft. These attacks began in 1944 because they had long lost aerial dominance due to outdated aircraft and the loss of experienced pilots. Japan had a rapidly declining industrial capacity compared to the United States. However, despite these problems, the Japanese government expressed its reluctance to surrender. These factors led to the use of kamikaze tactics as Allied forces advanced towards the Japanese home islands. The tradition of death instead of defeat, capture, and perceived shame was deeply rooted in Japanese military culture. During the final stages of World War II, America developed and deployed 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The results were devastating as people and objects were turned into ash in the matter of seconds. Hiroshima was the primary target of the first nuclear bombing mission, with Kokura and Nagasaki as alternative targets. The 393rd Bombardment Squadron B-29 Enola Gay took off from Northfield, Tinian, about 6 hours from Japan. The Enola Gay was accompanied by 2 other B-29s. The Great Artist, commanded by Major Charles Sweeney, carried basic instruments, and Necessary Evil served as the photography aircraft. At the time of its bombing, Hiroshima was a city of both industrial and military significance. A number of military units were located nearby, the most important of which was the headquarters of Field Marshal Shunroku Hata's 2nd General Army. The release at 8:15 went as planned, and the little boy took 44.4 seconds to fall from the aircraft, flying about 31,000 feet in the air to a detonation height of about 1,900 feet above the city. Enola Gay traveled 11.5 miles before it felt the shock waves from the blast. An estimated 90,000 to 166,000 people were killed, and even people's shadows were burned into sidewalks and buildings. The city of Nagasaki had been one of the largest seaports in southern Japan and was of great wartime importance because of its wide-ranging industrial activity, including the production of ships, military equipment, and other war materials. The 4 largest companies in the city were Mitsubishi Shipyards, Electrical Shipyards, Arms Plant, and Steel and Arms Works, which employed about 90% of the city's labor force and accounted for 90% of the city's industry. At 11:01, a last-minute break in the clouds over Nagasaki allowed the bombarder to visually sight the target as ordered. The Fat Man weapon was dropped over the city's industrial valley and exploded 47 seconds later at 1,650 feet above a tennis court. The bomb killed an estimated 39,000 to 80,000 people. Because of the great destruction that both of these atomic bombs caused, the usage of them in wars is still debated even today.